Hello, everyone, and welcome into another edition of One-on-One Nightly, the after-hours version of New York's longest-running sports call-in show. My name is Tom Quigley, and today I am joined here in the studio by a couple of relatively fresh faces. We got Will Grant over here to my left and Eli Keeler on the right. Will, how you doing tonight?
I can't complain, Thomas. I'm excited for a fun show, and let's get it going.
Let's. And Eli, this is your first appearance, is that correct?
This is my first appearance. I'm excited to be here.
Sweet. All right. Well, we got plenty to get into tonight, starting with the association. Both New York teams in action tonight, with the Knicks hosting the Magic and the Nets hosting the Cavs. We have reporters at each game. Hopefully, we'll be able to join us tonight on the show a little bit later. But the blockbuster game was last night, with Kevin Durant and his Nets hosting his former team, the Golden State Warriors. And, Will, once again, we got a classic Steph Curry performance, 37 points. What can you say about this Warriors team so far?
This Warriors team has impressed me like no other team in this league, and I don't think anybody, frankly, thought that they would. We all knew the Lakers were coming in, Russell Westbrook and everything, but that doesn't seem to be panning out at the moment. Curry right now is averaging 28, 6 assists, shooting 40% from the three. Unbelievable, 45 from the field, as you would think so. But this team is unbelievable. They only have 2 losses that were by a total of 7 points, and I think that their capability is to the moon. They can easily win this year, and nobody wanted any part of saying that. They were number 7 in the West Power rankings, and I think that was just downright disrespectful. When Clay comes back and Wiseman comes back, the people at ESPN who wrote up those articles are going to really regret what they said.
All right. I mean, it is to be noted that they are missing 2 of their best players. So certainly a lot to talk about with the Nets and the Knicks as well as some other NBA storylines we might get into if we have time. There is a future Hall of Fame lineup in LA that is kind of off to a rough start. Of course, they're missing LeBron. But if we have time, we'll get into some Lakers talk. But after the first break, we'll transition over to the NFL, where we saw quite a few unexpected results this weekend. A blowout win for the Patriots over the Browns, a big win for the Panthers over Arizona at Cam Newton's return, and a trouncing of the LA Rams by the Niners on Monday Night Football. Of course, we'll have to get into the woes of New York football as well, Eli.
I mean, as a Giants fan, I'm obviously disappointed about how the year's been going so far. But honestly, 2 wins in the last 3 weeks. They're not huge wins, but they're wins. I also think, one significant thing is our defense has stepped up significantly, like the secondary specifically. Bradbury and Adoree Jackson are kind of coming into that form of a defensive back duo that we thought would appear at the beginning of the year. It certainly didn't, but better late than never, I guess.
Well, we certainly have a lot to talk about in the football side of things, but after that, we'll have a mixed bag of headlines. Well, actually, before that, we rearranged things a little bit. We're going to talk a little college basketball. We have a headline out there from Duke, which is, not the best of headlines, which we'll get into. We're also do a little bit of a look to see who we think will be the standouts from this college basketball season. And after that, we'll wrap up the night with a few odd headlines, just random sports things that we thought were interesting in the news lately from, the entire world of sports, because we love every sport here. So let's just get right into it. I know that we have Mike Calamari, who is our beat reporter for the Knicks, is currently coming in to the phone. He's on the line right now. Mike, the Knicks are still in the second quarter. They're up 42-38. A pretty low-scoring first half. So my question for you is, what have you seen out of this Knicks defense? What kind of adjustments have you seen them make, obviously, after last year being a defensive stalwart and then this year being ranked 15th in the league in that category?
Hey, guys. Happy to be here. For the Knicks tonight, it's really just been limiting that Orlando perimeter shooting. They've really struggled from there, the Magic, so far. And they've stopped Cole Anthony only 0 for 4 from 3. He has not made a 3 yet. So That's been huge for the Knicks, and they've done a great job of marking him with guys like Emmanuel quickly, like guys like that. So he's done a great job there. And on the interior, that was a problem for the Knicks early in this when the Magic had their way with Wendell Carter, Mo Bamba, but, they brought in a guy like Taj Gibson. He did a great job to stop them there, and that was a real difference maker. And, this defense, they're going to have to find a way to mix and match guys because of the way they play. They have a really good second unit that's defensively. They got to find a way to make that first unit a little better defensively. But, they're finding the way. I think, Coach Tom Thibodeau is doing a great job with this defense. And by the end of the year, I think we're going to be talking about a top 10, top 5 defense in the NBA.
Yeah, so you brought it up just now. Cole Anthony, last time he came to the Garden, he torched them for 29, 16, and 8. In terms of defense, what exactly are they doing to hone in on Cole Anthony and prevent him from getting those easy baskets he was getting last time?
Yeah, I think it's just they don't want Cole Anthony to beat them tonight. They happened the last time he was at the Garden. He put on a show, and he won Orlando the game. That's exactly what they don't want to happen tonight. They're doubling him at the top of the key around the perimeter. They don't want him to get easy shots. They'd rather other guys get shots and make those points because when Cole Anthony gets going, that's the difference maker, averaging over 20 points so far for the Magic. So that's what you don't want if you're the Knicks, and that's exactly what they're doing. They're making other guys score for the Magic, and they rather take their chances there than Cole Anthony gets going, he starts getting hot, and then it's a problem for the Knicks.
All right, well, it sounds good out from the Garden. Thanks, Mike, for joining. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. Enjoy the rest of the game.
All right, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Mike.
So now the score is 42-41. There's about 2 minutes left in the second quarter. This is obviously a game that the Knicks should win. They've lost. I think they beat the Magic a little bit earlier in the season. They've also lost to them. I'll start with you, Eli. What have you made of this Knicks season so far? Obviously, they're 8-6, kind of like swimming around the middle of that Eastern Conference. No teams really other than the teams that you're really surprised by, like the Wizards and the Bulls,
Right.
and of course the Nets, who are supposed to heavily be favorites out of the East. No teams really kind of staked their claim yet. The Knicks are kind of just floating around the middle. But what have you seen so far out of this team? Are you impressed, or do you think they're kind of playing under their expectations? What do you think?
Well, yeah, to be honest, I'm disappointed, honestly. Last year, we played a very Thibodeau style of basketball, very heavy defensively. We played incredibly defensively, and that's what got us to the playoffs. Our offense lacked in the playoffs because obviously once you get to the playoffs, you need to have a big offensive and defensive presence to win games, especially against guys like Trae Young, who can score from every level. But this year specifically, the defense has been lacking tremendously, and the only reason that our record is the way that it is, and the only reason we have a winning record is because we were so hot from three specifically, and so on offensively the first few games of the season. We got a couple of wins that if we were playing offensively right now, we probably wouldn't have gotten. So the shooting has slowed down, which is expected, but that needs to come with a higher defensive efficiency, specifically from our starters, Kemba Walker and Evan Fournier. And I think that'll start to come once they get more situated with the team.
Yeah, no, I agree. The 3-point shooting at the beginning of the season was phenomenal. I know they were number one in the league for a week or two. And, obviously it's going to drop off and it's going to, come back to reality. They're going to come down from that high. But also at the same time, we got to look at D Rose and Kemba. They're both shooting over 42% from the three. We could see Emmanuel Quigley, his last 5 games, he's 14 of 25 from the three, over 50%. Unbelievable. I love him. That second unit, like RJ said the other day, his second unit, he trusts them so much. He thinks that they could start on any other team in the league, including their own. So when you have your main guy out there, your number 3 pick in the draft a few years ago, and he's telling you about how he thinks that your second unit can start over your first unit any given day of the week, then you should be confident for years to come as well. And there's so many different pieces on this team. I can go on all day about it. Obadiah Toppin, unbelievable, just coming in, providing some electric spark, some energy. That's what you need. And also acquisition of Kemba and Fournier. Like I said, Kemba before, shooting the three like a sniper. It's unbelievable. But Fournier, he's got to step his game up a little bit. He's averaging 13. I know he could do better than that, but Quiggs, what do you think?
Yeah, well, there's actually nothing I think that the Madison Square Garden faithful like better than watching Obi Toppin just succeed. I was at, I think it was game 5 of the NBA playoffs this year when they played the Hawks, and he got in for maybe 3 minutes, but he scored. I think he scored 5 points, but every time he would score, which was twice. But
those 5 points are
that was the loudest the Garden was that entire series, and that was also the same series that they were verbally abusing Trae Young. So, so obviously, anytime Obi gets the ball, they get very excited. As a Celtics fan last year, I was just so unbelievably worn out by Kemba, and obviously for him, it was probably best to get out of Boston because as soon as he got there, he just wasn't the same player that he was in Charlotte, and that could be because he's joining an actual contender, whereas he's when he was in Charlotte, they were always bad, and he was always the shining star there. But this season, he's been more efficient, but he's just getting so many fewer touches, and I feel I don't know, maybe the reason for that is because he was so, inefficient last year, and he was just not playing to his game as much. Derrick Rose has been playing pretty well. He's been more efficient from the field. He's averaging more rebounds than last year, which is good. Obviously, he'll never be the Derrick Rose that he was in Chicago, but
hey, man,
I mean that playoff run. During the playoff run, he was a formidable opponent, and he was kind of in those games in Atlanta. He was kind of the brightest spot for the Knicks.
Yeah, going back to Kemba, what you were saying, he kind of developed Kyrie Irving-itis. He came to the Celtics. He didn't perform like he did, like Kyrie did on the Cavs, taking them to a few championships with LeBron, of course, on riding his coattails. Never mind that. But Kemba Walker really wasn't living up to his full potential in Boston, and once he came to New York, I think he gelled really well with the entire lineup, and him and Fournier coming in together, I think, was really smart because both of them separately coming in, they would both feel a little bit out of place, a little out of tune, not knowing what the system's going to bring, what they can grab out of that because there's so many other players on the team that I explained before that are so good. But both of them coming in together I thought was good because then they can establish a chemistry with the two of them. So, we'll see how it goes from here, but Derrick Rose, you chimed in on him before. I have nothing but praise for him, and I think he looks pretty close to how he looked in Chicago, but
no,
that's fine. You
No,
can call
he
BS
doesn't.
on that.
Certainly not to his athletic level as he was. Some more on Kemba Walker. I think the position he's playing right now, I really like the way that. I mean, he's not as consistent offensively as I'd like him to be, but he's in the spot I really want him to be, where he really sets up the offense. He has tons of weapons. Any person on that starting lineup can score the ball. So he needs to, he can shoot well from three, and he's shooting efficiently, and he needs to keep that up. But he also needs to find Fournier, find Randall, find Barrett, and Barrett especially. I think he is underutilized, frankly, and I think Kemba can help him really reach the potential that Barrett could be as an offense player. So I think he doesn't, on the Hornets, he got a lot of touches, scored a lot of points, and they lost. And I think what he needs to do is he needs to accept the role of more of a pass first, set up the offensive point guard, because that is more of a Tom Thibodeau scheme. And he won't score as many points, but the Knicks are going to win games. They're going to get to the playoffs and hopefully get out of the first round.
Well, as it stands now, the Knicks are winning, but by a 2-point margin. 11 seconds left in that second quarter. 49-47 Knicks. I want to transition over to the Nets because we have Jack Roach calling in from the Nets game. They're playing Cleveland, of course. Jack Roach, welcome to the show. How are you doing tonight?
I'm great, Tom. Thanks for having me on the show. It's a lot of great energy here at the Barclays Center that we didn't see last night in their loss to the Warriors.
Right. So obviously this is a much lesser team in the Cleveland Cavaliers than the Golden State Warriors last night. But what are you seeing different from the Nets offense tonight? Obviously hard to, compete with Steph Curry and everything that he was last night. But are there any, key things that you see different from their offensive approach?
Right off the bat, James Harden is getting to the line. He's 8 of 8 on free throw attempts tonight, and he's a big reason why the Nets have their biggest halftime lead of the season. They're up 62-41 on the Cavs, and Ricky Rubio is really driving the offense for Cleveland, but in the second quarter, they only scored 4 points in the first 8 minutes. The Brooklyn Nets bench squad played really stout defense, and Cavs only put up 16 points in the second quarter. So Nets playing really great, not just on offense, but playing great defense as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting what you say about James Harden, because after the rule change at the beginning of the season, there was a lot of critique. Was he going to play at the same level at the beginning of the season? He wasn't shooting as many free throws. To see a night like this where he's 8 from 8 from the line at the half is incredible if you're a Nets fan. Do you think Harden can still play to the level he needs to, even with the rule changes?
I do. And for me, I think it really comes down more to the health of his hamstring than the rule change. I think James Harden has started to get used to the rule change, and every couple of games we see these types of vintage performances from James Harden, but I don't think we can expect to see that on a nightly basis from him as he continues to become more healthy. I think as the season goes on, we're going to see more of a return to form, just what we expect from James Harden.
All right, thanks a lot, Jack. Appreciate you calling in, and hope you enjoy the rest of the game.
Of course. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Of course, Jack. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the Nets bounced back pretty well thus far. Anything can happen in the second half, but they currently lead the Cavs 58-37 with 40 seconds left in the second quarter. Guys, if you only lived on NBA Twitter, you'd probably think that James Harden was like one of the worst players in the NBA right now, simply because of that rule change. Obviously, he hasn't been getting to the line as much as he has in years past, especially last year where he was just, ridiculously efficient as soon as he got to the Nets in that trade from Houston. But like you said, Eli, it's not really as much of a disparity between, how much he was able to score last year and this year.
Right, and I think that's huge for the Nets, especially with Kyrie out and pretty much no timetable of when he's going to be back. It's huge to get Harden back in his role and almost like a point guard role. Like we see him, I think he's led the Nets in assists every game this season except for one. So if he can really score and really pass, he can be huge for this Nets team. And he's one of those players that I'm really not worried about with the rule change. Like he can adapt very well, and we saw him years ago adapt into where he really focused his game into getting fouled, like kind of exploiting the foul rule and getting free throws. So I think just as easy as he settled into that role, he can come back out of it and play a type of basketball where he's not just focused at the line, really.
That's a really good point. I never really thought about it like that. He did get himself into that whole foul nonsense that has been eliminated since. And it's going to be interesting to see if he can get out of there as quick as he got in.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you got to understand that he's one of the best scorers in the league, not just because of his ability to draw fouls on the three-point shot, but also his driving ability, his between-the-leg dribble, his shiftiness. He's a great scorer in many different facets, and his ability to get to the rim is unparalleled to a lot of players in the league, and they just don't have the skill or the agility to get there. But I think that definitely it's gonna take a toll on him, and we've definitely seen that he led the league in free throws last year, attempts of course, but this year it's definitely a lot lower. It's decreased a lot, but that doesn't mean that his 20 points a game doesn't mean anything for the city of Brooklyn, and I think that if he just keeps continuing to get out of this whole foul mentality to get to the line, and he keeps working on his game, his mid-range, his layups, his driving package, his handle, it's all ridiculous. His three-point shooting, too. We forget about that. He's a great shooter. He doesn't need those fouls to get called. But anyway, he's so good in so many different ways that you can't really judge him off of his first 14, 15 games. And it's a different league for him, especially for him. Trae Young, like we were talking about before, it's different for him, but,
Well, James Harden is obviously a great player. I'm sure he'll be able to adapt to this new rule, as everybody else will have to. He's a former MVP, and we can't forget about his fellow former MVP teammate, Kevin Durant, who's, if it weren't for Steph Curry, would be the best basketball player on the face of the earth thus far this season, averaging almost 29 points a game, almost 57% from the field, almost 42% from three, still averaging 8 rebounds a game on 5 assists. I mean, what can you say about Kevin Durant?
I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's scary to think that him and Steph Curry just a few years ago were on the same team. It's truly just terrifying. Like, even though Steph Curry is, you could argue he's playing better than him right now, Kevin Durant is undeniably the best player, like, consistently. Over a long period of time, over the whole season, I think we'll go back and say, Kevin Durant played to this incredibly high level of basketball the entire season. And not that I don't think Steph Curry can't do that, but, injuries are a factor for him, as we've seen last year. We don't know when Klay Thompson and James Wiseman come back, we don't know how that offense, that offense could shift a little bit. But, I mean, Kevin Durant is just, I'm literally at a loss for words. He's just so good at basketball.
Yeah, man, he's a freak. He's really good at basketball, and I didn't even realize looking at these stats that he had 8 rebounds a game too. Like,
let the record show that Kevin Durant is good at basketball.
Hey, he's pretty good. He's pretty good. Not as good as my boy over in Golden State, but Kevin Durant, we could just talk about how good he is all day, but what is that gonna do?
Right. So this would be a good time to transition to the team that beat them last night pretty handily. Which is kind of hard to imagine because this Nets team is pretty formidable even without Kyrie. But, I mean, the Warriors went into Brooklyn last night, and Steph Curry, the man of the hour, dropped 37 points. Recently,
That's a lot of points.
It's quite a few points. He was just pulling up from, the logo, and he would just do it in transition. And it's just how do you guard that? Because yeah, you could just send your defenders out to literally half court to defend Steph Curry, but I don't think that's very plausible. And it just looks stupid if you do it. But he's gonna hit those. He's still gonna hit them, and that's just a ridiculous thing to have in your arsenal, especially when your team is 12-2, leading the West, and you don't have 2 of your best players in James Wiseman and Klay Thompson, who hasn't been on the team in 2 years. This Warriors team is so scary.
They're frightening. They're frightening, Quigs. Honestly, I've never seen somebody or a coach put 3 players on Steph Curry off of that dribble that he gets off of, and he somehow just manipulates them into falling for his tricks every single time and just pulls it. You're not going to find that in any other player in the league or anybody in history. Maybe Kyrie Irving with the handle, but the ability to shoot the 3 off of the dribble from the logo to the mid-range is just unparalleled, and I don't see how this is going to make any sense with the fact that Klay is coming back too, because he's just going to shift everybody. He's going to get a quadruple team and kick it off to him every time. And it's also even scarier, like you were saying before, that they had Kevin Durant on the team a few years ago. This is a crazy time for the NBA. And obviously, you see how a system like the Golden State Warriors is always going to be effective with a coach like Steve Kerr. And then we also can take a look at the Nets right now. They are doing pretty well, but they're never going to be like the Warriors like they were in their dynasty time. And even now, it's the best team in the league. So you can throw a bunch of players together, Kyrie, James Harden, KD, they all want their minutes, they all want their touches, all that stuff. But at the same time, if you have Curry leading you, and if he's your number one man in the locker room, you should have a lot of faith in your team for years to come.
Yeah, I mean, Steph Curry, 9 from 14 from 3. I mean, we could talk all day about his 3-point shooting. It's just ridiculous. 7 rebounds, 5 assists. One big thing I love this from Curry, 2 steals and a block. Not huge numbers, but he is playing defensively one of the best seasons he's ever had, which is huge. And especially, when it comes down to MVP conversation, to see that he's among the leaders in steals and guards, that'll just solidify his ridiculous scoring. And it's hard to double or triple team a guy like Steph Curry when he's as good as passer as anyone in the league, and he will find the open people, and the rest of the Warriors will hit shots. Andrew Wiggins, even without Klay Thompson, and Andrew Wiggins is playing pretty well this year. They played the Timberwolves, a few days ago, and he had 35 against his former team,
Revenge
which
game.
was definitely personal, for sure. Some of the bench players too. Gary Payton, not a big shooter, but he's explosive. You see him every day. Every day I open Instagram and there's another video of him dunking on somebody.
He's got that OB spark.
He really does, and you need someone like that just to wake up the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
You see names like Iguodala, Kuminga's playing pretty well. So he has a lot of weapons. Even without Klay Thompson and Wiseman, I think the Warriors are going to keep this up, and they're going to be amazing this year. And we'll see about a championship.
Yeah, like you were saying about there's no one quite like Steph Curry. There is. That's completely true. I'd say the closest thing to him is Trae Young right now. And the Warriors just hosted the Hawks on, I think it was Monday of last week, and Curry dropped 50. You can't
Can't make it up.
You can't make it up, and you got to think that he knows. He's like,
He
Trae
knows.
Young's coming to this building. They're saying
Yeah.
he's the next coming of me.
Yeah, he
I got to show up.
Statement game.
And show up, he did. I just, it's unbelievable. He's aging like fine wine. It's almost like he's playing better now than he was in his MVP season.
This is genuinely the best we've ever seen Curry
exactly.
as a well-rounded player.
It's pretty.
Hey.
It's pretty wild.
The dude is coming off a scoring title too, and it's like he's not even. Is he in his prime? Is he not? But also at the same time, you brought up that Hawks game last week where they beat them pretty handily, 14 points, not too bad. But also you got to give Trae Young his flowers. The kid had 28 points, shot 11 for 20. 2 for 3 from the free throw line. I mean, you got to make that other one, but come on. But Trae Young, that's a great comparison. He's so unbelievably talented and skilled, and he is in my nightmares because of what he did to my favorite basketball team in the playoffs last year. It's crazy. Every time I close my eyes, I see him pulling up from the logo, shifting, putting that teardropper in the bucket, and I really want revenge this year, and I think the Hawks are really gonna get their comeuppance.
You think so? You think the Knicks are gonna see him in the playoffs again? I mean, that would be ultimate TV. I know that every single ESPN, TNT, they would love that matchup in the playoffs.
I would love it if there was no crowd at the
Really?
MSG, because MSG, they yell at Trae Young, and he's like, yeah, bring it on. I love this.
Yeah.
I'm going to
Okay.
drop 40 on you guys.
That was
So-
one of the biggest things in the playoffs that that was just so dumb of them. They could not stop chirping him, and he could not stop just
That-
hitting threes in their face.
That's just Knicks fans, man.
Knicks
You
fans
can't
just
get
don't learn.
thousands of drunk people to all comply with being silent. They
right.
love it. They
I'm-
love the theatrics.
I mean,
It's what the Garden's about.
yeah, I definitely agree with that. And as a Knicks fan, I could say I can agree with you guys, but I know if I'm at that game sitting courtside, I am yelling at Trae Young.
You are
I
yapping.
know I'm screaming at Trae Young. These Knicks fans are a different breed, and Trae Young could have 45 points with 2 minutes left. We're down 20, and we'll still be screaming at him. It really doesn't matter.
No, we could have the worst record in the league by far and score under 70 points, and we'll still have the loudest fans in the league. That's a testament to what New York basketball and Madison Square Garden is really about.
For
It's
sure.
it's also a testament to how much torture they've been put through the
Yeah.
past
Yeah.
11 years or somewhat.
Good point.
Yo,
Good
Oh
point.
my god.
We see the Knicks after the first game of the season, we get Bing Bong.
Oh my god, Bing
Like-
Bong. What even is that? Bing Bong.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Wolves loves it though. He's a big Bing Bong guy. That's our producer Alex Woltz. He's a huge Knicks fan and he loves the Bing Bong thing. So I mean, that'll probably wrap it up for the NBA. We didn't get to the Lakers and Bulls. I think we could get we'll get some 30-second takes from both of you. Obviously, the Lakers are not playing up to the what they should be. They're a lineup of future Hall of Famers. Obviously, LeBron's out right now, but Russ is just not playing like Russ. Anthony
he's
Davis not
playing
really
like
carrying the
Russ.
load. It's really the biggest. The biggest star on the Lakers right now is Carmelo Anthony, which is pretty cool. But then you got the Bulls in Chicago, obviously a team that made some free agent splashes with DeMar DeRozan, of course Alex Caruso, Eric Caruso, and Lonzo Ball. Two of those are former Lakers, and they're now balling out for the Bulls. So what have you seen out of these two teams so far? Are you surprised by what's going on?
It's very shocking for the Bulls to be doing this well. You never expect Chicago sports to actually be good.
Right.
But DeMar DeRozan, you can tell that you got LeBron James making executive decisions for your $1 billion franchise. This is just what you get. You get Russell Westbrook instead of DeMar DeRozan, who came in and torched the Staples Center for 73 points over that 2 course of the games. And then they're going to rename the Staples Center DeMar DeRozan Arena, I heard. Was that it?
No, I
I'm
think
pretty
that's
sure.
right.
Yeah, that's what I have in my.
Oh, okay. All right, yeah. So, but no, he's phenomenal, and I really think that the Lakers and Jeannie Buss and Jerry Buss, they all shouldn't have listened to LeBron on that one. It's a bad take.
Yeah, I absolutely love seeing DeRozan play to this level, especially when Russ is not playing to the level that he's supposed to be. I'm not a Russ hater, but DeRozan has been, in my opinion, I mean, with the Spurs, he did not play as well as people thought he would. But people forget about his prime with the Raptors. He is so underrated. He is so underrated. And in my opinion, Russ is so overrated. You can talk about triple-doubles all day long, but until he wins games consistently, I don't want to hear it. Another thing with the Bulls is Lonzo is finally playing as well as LeVar Ball said he would. He is actually playing phenomenal basketball. And we see his passing, his shooting, all improved. They're all phenomenal. And when you have someone like Caruso, DeRozan, Vucevic, and all of them, it's beautiful, the basketball that they're playing. And a lot of people are skeptical if they can hold this up throughout the season, but I think they can. I think they'll make the playoffs, and I think they're going to play well.
I like that. I like the categorization of the Bulls as beautiful, because the Warriors, on the other hand, are just frightening. So I like that. It's a good adjective.
The only hope against the Warriors as of now, although, no, what am I talking about? Chicago's in the East, so never mind. Disregard that. Anyway, that'll just
Scratch
about
that
do
from the
it
record.
for our NBA segment. After the break, we're going to talk a little bit of NFL, but stay tuned. You're watching One-on-One Night.
Bing bong.
Bing bong.
Welcome back to One-on-One Nightly, New York's longest-running sports call-in show. Let's talk some NFL. So obviously we just talked about one super team in Los Angeles, and they're a city known for their super teams right now. Obviously, the LA Dodgers have quite a few all-stars on their roster, although they got stuck by the Atlanta Braves in the NLCS, but that's neither here nor there. Now we're talking about the LA Rams, the newest super team out of LA. And they got their butts kicked in on Monday Night Football in front of the entire country, the world, in fact. They lost 31-10 in San Francisco to the 49ers. Whew. Not what I expected. So let's just go over a quick timeline of the Rams season. You got your new QB in Matthew Stafford. Trade him for Jared Goff, who's now in the Lions. And they started their season 7-1, albeit against mostly non-competitive teams, but they did beat the Super Bowl champs, Tampa Bay Bucks, in Week 3. Cooper Kupp has emerged as one of the best receivers in the game this season, so it's definitely some bright spots for this Rams team very early on. And then just 2 weeks ago, they trade for Von Miller from the Broncos to bolster a defense already led by Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. And they followed that acquisition with a 12-point loss to the Titans at home. All right, 7-2, no reason to panic. It's just one loss, and the Titans are good. Then this past week, they sign star receiver Odell Beckham Jr., who was released by the Browns for personnel reasons.
Yeah.
But after that, obviously, this is when the super team talk really started to get going because, now this team on paper just sounds unfair. You got Cooper Kupp, Odell Beckham Jr., Robert Woods. That's a ridiculous receiver core. Then right after they sign Odell, Robert Woods out for the season with a torn ACL. Okay, so that's just a great signing, I guess. Mm-hmm. Unfortunate that happened, but now you got your replacement. And then Monday Night Football runs around, and they lose a very ugly 31-10 loss to the 3-5 49ers in San Francisco. Matthew Stafford was 25 for 41 for 241 yards, 2 picks, just 1 touchdown. And Von Miller and Odell had basically zero effect on the field or on the impact of the game. It's somewhat to be expected that Odell's not going to make much of an impact just a few days after getting signed. Regardless, what's wrong with the Rams? Are they still favorites to win their division? Do they still have Super Bowl hopes? I'll go to you, Eli.
The Rams looked despicable. Stafford looked a lot more like Jared Goff than the Matthew Stafford we've been seeing. I had him as a favorite for MVP. Unfortunately, it was only 1 week, so I'm not going to overreact. But if it keeps going up like this, it's really not going to be a good sight. I'm not too worried about Odell Beckham Jr. as he just showed up, and behind Cooper Kupp, he's going to get his opportunities. He's going to get his catches, and once he gets the ball in his hands, he's going to make magic happen. The defense was atrocious. Von Miller, there's a highlight going around. Von Miller gets absolutely pancaked by George Kittle. Mm-hmm. And that just speaks to the run game. The run game by the 49ers was amazing. Elijah Mitchell, 27 carries, 91 rushing yards, and a touchdown. They had 156 rushing yards in total. So when you're running for 156 yards, and Deebo Samuel had another fantastic week. So when you're rushing and passing like that, it's really going to be hard to lose.
Yeah, we can ask what happened to the Rams, but we should ask what were the schedule makers thinking, giving them so many tomato cans, besides the Buccaneers, obviously, who they beat pretty single-handedly. But they lost to the Cardinals, who are a legitimate team. They lost to the Niners, who are so-so, and the Titans are a legitimate team. But we got to think about who they beat. They beat the Bears week 1, the Colts week 2. They beat the Giants, Seahawks with Geno. They beat the Texans, and they beat who else did they beat? No, I think I covered all of them. Oh, and the Lions. The Lions. They beat the Lions.
Tough one.
So yeah, that's kind of a given. That's an easy one. But anyway, the Rams have a lot of good faces in the locker room, but that doesn't necessarily translate to on the field accuracy and get them where they're going to want to go, because they were a Super Bowl team contender last week, but this week it's really just not looking that way. 7-3 is a lot different from 7-2, and OBJ, acquiring him, you're just throwing another thing in the mix, and Von Miller too last week, and he's not really showing up. So if they can get those guys to start generating offense and defense in their own ways and live up to what they're capable to, then I think they're in good hands. But at the moment right now, the Stafford-Cooper Kupp connection is vital. It's key. It's going. I like it a lot. But Robert Woods with the ACL we just talked about, it's going to be difficult for them to really bounce back and establish something if OBJ can't contribute to this offense effectively.
Yeah, they're still 7-3. They're in, a pretty tough division out there in the NFC West, because you got the Cardinals, who are 8-2. Seahawks aren't really good. And the Niners, the Niners just beat them down. But Jimmy Garoppolo should not look like Peyton Manning out there
Absolutely not.
because he just isn't. And he hasn't been like that in 2 years. This isn't a good Niners team. And you can't be, losing 31-10, especially when you have such a ridiculous offensive, like you just have so many weapons available to you. And what's kind of crazy is that I don't think like this super team formula is necessarily working in LA.
Right.
It hasn't really worked for any of their teams yet.
None. Yeah.
The Dodgers
none of
didn't
them.
get past the Braves. The Lakers are floundering. Obviously, they don't have LeBron. But I don't think that just getting, this is more of a philosophical argument, but I don't think just getting players that are, skilled players that are terrific and proven, and just putting them all on one team is going to make that team win games.
The Lakers right now are the all-star team from 2008 to 2012. I mean,
Right.
Like, what do you got a bunch of names that everybody knows, but at the same time, how well are they going to perform on the
Exactly.
floor?
And this comes down to coaching too. And we know, Sean McVay is a good coach. He's been to a Super Bowl. I don't think he's had one losing season with the Rams, but he's a great young coach. And it's just a little bit weird that, it's just 2 games, but like, it's just a very strange
Two very
reaction
important games. Like,
to
Yeah.
2 very big level acquisitions.
And
So, we'll see if they bounce back from this, but
yeah, and I would say with the Rams is the difference between, and just a note, last week I would have considered them at least fringe Super Bowl contenders. I really believe in the Rams. I really believe in Matt Stafford. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah, the difference between playoff teams and not playoff teams is winning the games you're supposed to win.
Right.
And the Rams did not do that, especially divisional game. You should beat you should be easily 2-0 against 49ers.
should have given them a whooping.
Should have destroyed them, and they looked like fools. And going on, they have to win every game they're supposed to win. They have to win them all.
Who do they got? They got the Packers next week.
That's going to be tough.
that's going to be a really telling matchup. I mean,
Yeah,
if
for real.
if they can show up against the Packers next week, then I will regain faith in the Rams. Like if
Hey,
they can
I mean,
really
you can't lose
play
faith
well.
this early.
it is pretty early. They are 7-3. I will say this about Padthew Stafford. That's Padthew Stafford. When he was with the Lions, he was a big stats guy. He was not a big wins guy, and you can blame that on the ineptitude of the Detroit Lions franchise. Obviously, they've never won a Super Bowl, haven't been to the playoffs, and I've lost track, but certainly haven't won a playoff game in a very long time. Just plugging him into a better system, like he has been good so far, and his stats have been great, but he is not a quarterback that's known for winning, and it would be a bit of a surprise to see him just completely have no, hurdles along the way to becoming, a successful quarterback and having a winning season with a new team, especially. So this game against the Packers is going to be very telling because the Packers are the best team in the league. And, if they can show up in that game and they can compete, do you know, is that in Green Bay or in LA?
Let me at Green Bay.
At Green Bay. So
yeah.
that's going to be a very tough environment for them. I mean, we'll see if they can bounce back. I think after a loss like that, if you don't bounce back, it's more of an indictment on like your character in your locker room. But this is a tough team, so as long as they're at least in this game, I'm not going to lose faith in them. But I would like to transition to something that I care a little bit more about, and that's the New England Patriots. Oh boy, here they come again. So, obviously, we're 2 years removed from the Brady era in New England. Cam Newton took over last year, was largely ineffective at the QB position, really just a running threat. We'll see what happens in Carolina. They draft Mac Jones with the 15th overall pick, the fifth QB taken in the draft. Of course, he was the Alabama quarterback, backup for Jalen Hurts and Tua Tagovailoa, who are both now starters in the NFL, of course. Mm-hmm. He was only a one-year starter at Alabama. He won a national championship, yada, yada, yada. All the pundits were like, he's the lowest potential of all the quarterbacks selected in the first round, wasn't as athletic, not as strong an arm. And regardless, the Patriots have won 4 straight. They're 6-4, half game behind the Buffalo Bills. And despite getting off to a 1-3 start, and even though, that third loss was really well played, it was against Tom Brady, coming back for his first game in Foxborough since leaving to go to Tampa, After that, they beat the Texans in a very ugly game. And I was still thinking, wow, this is just going to be like last season. It's going to be the Tom Brady hangover. But then the Cowboys come to town, and that was, it was a big momentum switch, even though they lost that game, an eventual 35-29 shootout. But it looked like, when the Pats scored that 29th point, that was a touchdown from Mac Jones. It was that was an absolute bomb. I forget who caught the touchdown pass, but it was a great comeback. It was like 2 minutes left. He marched us down the field. He took the lead, and it looked like we were going to win that game. We don't win the game, but that's a huge momentum swing. Then the 2-4 Pats, they host the Jets for the second blowout of the year. The Jets, a very gritty win in LA the next week against the Chargers. Now you're at 4-4. Then they go to Carolina, beat the Panthers, another landslide victory, and another blowout, and this time against the Cleveland Browns at home.
Yeah.
I was a bit surprised by this team this week. I was pleasantly surprised, but I didn't think they were this good. I thought they were a team that could really compete with any team. I didn't think they were going to blow out the Browns. The Browns are a good team. So, now you got everybody looking up at this Patriots team who's on a 4-game win streak. They're a half game back of the Bills, who were in the AFC Championship a year ago. And people are saying that the Patriots might be the best team in the conference. And for what I've seen from this team, the growth of Mac Jones, the increasing comfortability of his aerial threats, Hunter Henry's 7 touchdowns in his last 7 games. Jacoby Myers finally got that first career touchdown Sunday. And running backs like Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson, who went 100 yards for 2 touchdowns.
I love that name, Ramondre.
Ramondre, man. He looked ridiculous in the preseason against the Giants. He went off again last week. And this defense, led by J.C. Jackson, Mr. INT himself, and Matthew Judon, who leads the league in sacks with 9.5, might be the best offseason signing. I think that the Patriots might just be the best team in the AFC. So please, tell me I'm wrong.
I'll tell you why you're right first, and then I'll tell you why you're wrong. But, I think the Patriots looked fantastic yesterday, and they had blowout wins, as you said, against Jets and the Panthers, which are good wins, but almost insignificant because they're against worse teams. A huge win like this against the Browns is very telling of what this team has turned into. Again, Stevenson, before this game this weekend, I'm not gonna lie, I'd never heard of him in my life. I know who he is now.
Yeah.
He is a beast. Mac Jones, 200 passing yards and 3 touchdowns as well. And I love J.C. Jackson too. He's fantastic. To say they're the best team in the AFC, come on now. We got the.
Let's be reasonable here.
Who's a better team in the AFC? No, tell me if it's the Bills, I'll tell you that I'm not scared of the Bills.
Oh, they're not scared of the Bills, but they will.
I'm not scared of the Bills.
You're not scared. It doesn't matter if you're scared. I think
That's
the Patriots are scared of them.
I think they're even less scared.
Look,
but come on.
They're 6-4 as of last week. I really didn't even think that there was a picture for the AFC East with the Patriots somehow coming up on top. But they have shocked me. They won 4 straight. That's fine. That's good. They'll get their wins. But you gotta think about who they beat. Anybody truly competitive? They beat the Jets 2 times. They beat the Texans, a mediocre Chargers, not the same one that we saw last year, and the Panthers. But, however, they did beat the Browns last week. They literally wiped the floor with them. They murdered the spread on that. And, what I'm really looking forward to is December 6th. We can talk all day about if you're scared or if the Patriots are scared, the Bills are scared, the Mafia is scared, the tables are scared in the parking lots. Who cares? Who cares? But for now, they're going to go steamroll the Falcons, no doubt about it. They'll go 7-4. But December 6th versus the Bills, that's when you're going to be handing me $100 because we're going to make a bet on that.
Oh, my. We're making a bet
I'm kidding.
on the airways right now. I'll do it.
We'll talk about this.
There's 2 games. There's 2 games that they play in December, Bills-Patriots, which is very weird backloading of the schedule.
Huh.
So that might make it tricky for the Pats, but it should be noted that the Pats have their bye in December. So that might come in handy. They got a lot of games before that. I don't think that. Obviously the Bills currently own the AFC East. They won it last year and they lead it right now.
Yeah.
But the way that the Patriots have won and lost games is what is really behind like this apparently hot take that I have. That's definitely hot. They're 6-4, but they're not losing these games by a lot. They lost by 1 point to the Dolphins. They lost by 6 points to the Cowboys, and I mean, if
They got blown out by the Saints.
they got blown up by the Saints, that's week 3 though. That was Mac Jones' first. No, never mind. They played home against the Dolphins. But
yeah, what happened with the Dolphins?
it's a 1 point game. At the time, the Dolphins didn't suck yet. We
Okay,
thought that they were
fair
good
enough.
last year.
Fair enough.
And if we're talking about that Chargers win, the Chargers are way better this year, at least have been earlier in the season than they were last year.
And to your
Now they're
credit-
falling off. But that was a road win to, a team that they beat 49-0 last year. Just saying. But this Chargers team was better. And even still, like, Justin Herbert had like an all right game. He still threw for a couple touchdowns, I believe. And it was their defense that really just came through. And that's the biggest thing. This Patriots defense, I think, is the best in the league. And I don't think a lot of people are necessarily arguing against that.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
defense wins championships.
the defense does win championships. I'd also say that Derrick Henry wins championships.
He's never won a championship.
He's never won a championship. No. Let me
He's
keep
literally
talking.
never won a
No,
championship.
let me keep talking. I understand that he hasn't won a championship, but Derrick Henry is a different animal. And where the Titans are right now, they sit atop the AFC. And I think, there's no timetable for Derrick Henry's return. But I think once they get to the playoffs, I truly think the Titans can win the championship if they have a healthy Derrick Henry when they get to the playoffs. I also think the Bills, there's a difference between the Bills and the Patriots. The Patriots, even though it's a 1 point loss, you're supposed to beat teams like the Dolphins. And as I said before,
First game of the year.
Yeah, I mean,
First game of the year,
that's
rookie
not,
quarterback.
That's not really fair.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll give them that.
okay, that's fair. The Bills beat the teams they're supposed to.
No, they
most
don't.
of the
They
time.
lost to the Jaguars.
They lost to the Titans. The
They
Jaguars
literally
haven't
lost to
exploded.
The Jaguars suck. that
right,
was
that's
the
valid.
only win that the Jaguars have had on U.S. soil in the past, 500 days? I'm sorry that I'm
I
throwing
like
you under the
US
bus here.
No,
soil.
that's fair.
Don't come at me with the Patriots. They're the best team in the AFC, baby. I'm telling you right now.
Bengals are better.
All right. No, I mean, there's definitely, this is a hot take. I'll admit that myself. But I think that the Patriots are back. And I think there are a lot of people that are saying that there are a lot of people making comparisons to Tom Brady with Mac Jones and that the style they play, not how good they'll be or like the potential of them, because obviously that would be ridiculous. But they're not wrong. I mean, they're two guys that really aren't that very mobile. They don't have the strongest arms, but they have pretty good football IQ. And when you pair that with a coach like Bill Belichick and a defense that he puts together, I mean, that's a team that can go out and win a playoff game, I think, definitely. But I think that they could even make it to the AFC Championship. And, we'll see. But obviously you guys don't agree. But that's what I think.
Hey,
And we'll
we
see.
can agree to disagree. How about we take a little look at the NFC East here and talk about the Giants?
All right, let's
for
talk a
sec.
little Giants.
got 3 and
the
6 here?
Giants are 3-6. They had a bye week this week.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think about the Giants right now?
You wanna know
of
what I
their
think?
of their season thus far? Obviously, Daniel Jones is kind of just.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan.
There's
of
not
DJ.
really a lot of improvement that we're seeing out of him. This is year 3 now. What have you seen out of his development?
I mean, he's all right. I haven't liked him the entire season. I didn't like him much at the end of the season, but that one-handed catch was pretty sweet.
Okay, that's
That's
one thing he has over Brady.
was
Is
cool,
he can
yeah.
catch the ball.
But 3 of the losses that the Giants had this season were by a total of 1 touchdown. So you got to think about that. And the way that they choke these late games is just really upsetting because they really could be 6-3. But it's just stupid errors like that play against Washington, that last snap, and that whole penalty argument, blah, blah, blah. But they should have had that one. Also, you got to think about injuries. Shep's questionable. Andrew Thomas is on the IR. Saquon is questionable. Booker's questionable. Look, I'm going to draw a comparison here to the Dallas Cowboys. A lot of people counted the Dallas Cowboys out for the past 2 or 3 years because they didn't really live up to their full potential because everybody was injured. They were plagued with injuries. Dak, Zeke, all just different facets. But once they were fully healthy, they were able to get something going, dominate. As we see right now, they're going to win. They're probably going to go to the Super Bowl. As a Giants fan, I'm really reluctant to say that, but I really think they are. And I think the same goes with the Giants. If everybody comes in healthy and ready to go, they can build something up like the Cowboys are doing this year.
Yeah, it's heart-wrenching to admit, but the Cowboys look fantastic.
Yeah.
A couple of bright spots recently from the Giants. Their secondary, Bradbury, a Pro Bowl corner last year, he started off the season pretty poorly, I'm not going to lie, but he looks pretty good the past 4 weeks. The last 4 games, Bradbury allowed less than 30 yards each game against him, which is, what we saw from him last year. That's what we want to see. Adoree Jackson's also been playing pretty well, except, hands of stone. He still can't catch the ball. We see Saquon probably coming back on Monday, hopefully coming back on Monday. That's going to be huge. Saquon early in the year looked like he's coming off an injury. It was really easy to tell. Hopefully he can really get back in the swing of things like we've seen him in the past. And to talk about Daniel Jones as well, I had faith in Daniel Jones even when we had not such a good season last year because he had that stretch of games where he didn't commit very many turnovers. But he's back to where turnovers are a regular thing for him. And I really have lost faith in Daniel Jones. And even when he makes really nice catches like that, what does
that really mean?
What does that mean? And we're gonna have 2 solid draft picks because we have the Bears pick as well. So I think we should probably go quarterback with one of those. To be honest,
I couldn't agree more.
After all, we are a New York sports call-in show, the longest running.
Bing bong.
So I would be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about the Jets, just a little bit, because we don't want to waste too much time on them. 2-7. They got absolutely spanked by the Bills at home this weekend. That's to be expected. But the big news out of the Jets this week is that newly signed Joe Flacco will be starting over Mike White as Zach Wilson is still out. What do you make of that move?
Well, I think the definition, I don't know if this is really a term, but it is now. I don't really know it. The definition of 1 week wonder is Mike White. Michael, I don't really watch the Jets very much. I don't know a lot about the Jets. Joe Flacco, I don't think is going to help them or change their situation too much.
Experience, and he could see over the offensive line, not like Zach Wilson could.
He's also formerly an elite quarterback, so
formerly
Super Bowl champion.
Right. There's not much to say about Joe Flacco and the Jets. I think they'll probably continue at the pace they've been going. Maybe they'll be, a little bit better passing the ball, but I really don't see this to be that meaningful.
Yeah, Mike White apparently expressed a lot of disappointment upon being told that he's headed back to the bench. So, statement game for Joe Flacco.
It is a bit strange that they would just go. It just seems like they were really bought in with Mike White as soon as he had that really good game against. Remind me who that was against.
It's against the Titans, right? They beat them by 3.
No, Bengals, right?
Still not a bad team.
Yeah.
Okay, they beat the Titans.
Yeah, because he got injured against the Patriots, and then he had the really good game against the Bengals. That's the weird thing about the Jets. They keep beating these good teams.
Yeah, I know. It's hilarious.
And then they're 2-7. But, Joe Flacco starting for the Jets. It's almost like we're going backwards in time.
It's comedy.
But that'll just about do it for this NFL segment. We're going to head to a break. Right after, though, we'll hop into some college hoops talk. But this is 101 Night. Welcome back to One-on-One Nightly, New York's longest-running sports call-in show. Once again, my name is Tom Quigley, and I'm here joined by Will Grant and Eli Keeler. And gentlemen, let's talk some college basketball. I want to hear, obviously the season's just gone underway, and when it comes locally, we've had a bit of a changing of the guard here. In a new coach, we had ASAP Ferg come, and then a little, what was that called again?
Night on the Hill.
Late Night on the Hill.
Late
right,
Night on the
right.
Hill.
How could I
It was
forget?
at 8 o'clock.
It was at 8 o'clock. But there's a lot more important college basketball being played outside of the A10, and I want to get your early thoughts on who you guys think will be the big names out of college basketball this season. So I would say just go back and forth giving me names and don't repeat.
All right. I guess to start, probably the most anticipated player, Chet Holmgren of Gonzaga.
Who?
7 feet tall, 190 pounds. He's a skinny guy, but he can play basketball. He has the things you would expect from the guy of his size. He's a fantastic shot blocker. He's a great rebounder. He can obviously finish in the paint. But he has things that a lot of other 7-footers don't have. He has fantastic passing. I would describe it as Jokic-esque. He's a pretty good shooter. Not just threes, but he has somewhat of a mid-range game. And he has really good post moves and really good handles. He loves the spin move in the paint that I haven't particularly seen so much in college, but he loved it in high school, and he went to that all the time. And I think that's a move he can carry to the NBA and really be effective.
Yeah, I'm very impressed by Chet Holmgren from what we've seen so far. But, obviously you got to give Drew Timme his flowers. He's just so unbelievable. What did he have, 37 the other night against, was it Texas or something like that?
I don't know. Yeah, he's
Scratch that from the record. But 6'10" forward. He averaged 19 for the number one team in the nation last year, indisputable, and 7 rebounds as a sophomore. We're talking about he's my age, which is very scary to think about that somebody my age can grow that ugly of facial hair. Anyway, 31-1 record last year, very impressive. He led his team along with Jalen Suggs, who's now of course a Magic bust, but Mark Few, unbelievable coach, and him and Holmgren. Funny that you and I both picked Gonzaga players. No. But anyway, Mark Few is going to lead those two to the national championship this year. I'm very confident, and Drew Timme's going to be walking out with a Lamborghini, a Gucci bag, and $1 million after draft night. But who's your pick? Who do you got now? Or Quiggs, did you have one?
Well, I mean, obviously, you picked 2 Zags, and I was actually going to ask you guys whether you think – it sounds like you think they're going to go back to the national championship.
Absolutely.
I mean, do you think that they have another run like that in them?
I mean –
do you think – it's crazy. It would be crazy to predict another undefeated season,
yeah,
but do you think that this team is capable of doing that?
I think they could definitely get back to the NBA or to the national championship.
Right.
But because Holmgren is such a talent, and Timme obviously is as well. But both of them together, I just don't know. There's not really a better pairing of big men in college basketball. Like they're so good at basketball. Just to say that. If I were to give another name, this is probably my favorite college basketball player right now, Jaden Ivey, 6'4", 195. He's a sophomore. He is filthy. He is someone who I think can translate to the NBA in the best way possible. He's incredibly athletic. He's pretty strong, but he plays like he's the strongest player on the court all of the time. He will jump with anybody. His finishing is ridiculous. There are videos of Michael Jordan going up against 3 guys, getting fouled, and still making layup. Like, he's got that kind of finishing. He's really, really amazing. And I think if that translates to the NBA, he could be one of the best picks in this draft.
I can't disagree with you there. We were talking about, Quiggs just asked us if Gonzaga, we think they're going to repeat, or not repeat, of course, but they didn't win. But if they're going to go undefeated again, go far. But some kid from UCLA named Johnny Juzang, who's a junior, is unbelievable. And I think that game last year was so close. We forget about how close UCLA, what were they, a 9 seed or a 10 seed?
I think they're an 8 seed.
8 seed? Still, yeah.
But that was like the first time like an 8 seed had made it to the Final Four in like the longest time.
Yeah. I think maybe Butler got there in 11. But Their UCLA was so close to going to the national championship, led by Johnny Juzang and Tiger Campbell, of course. But this team is so good coming in right now, and they just beat Villanova, I think, last Friday night. Juzang's averaging 22.8, shooting 50.9% from in the tournament. I mean, that's unbelievable. He's making 1 out of 2 shots he puts up. So if he can keep up what he was doing last year in the tournament, dominating, slicing, dicing, sizzling, he's really gonna be something special this year throughout the regular season, I think. And UCLA is gonna be definitely contenders. If you're gonna put a future out, put some money, sprinkle some in there.
All right. Before we end this segment, I want to get both of your guys' pick for Freshman of the Year and National Player of the Year. So we'll go to you first, Eli.
Okay.
They can be the same too.
Okay.
If you're bold.
I like Jaden Ivey. I also very much like Jabari Smith. I don't think they're going to win Freshman of the Year. I think it's going to be Holmgren, maybe Imoni Bates. Kind of a sleeper for that. But Holmgren just seems like if he keeps playing like he does, it's really hard for anyone else to win it. And if Gonzaga really, goes back to a national championship, we could see him winning National Player of the Year or even Drew Timme. You never know how he's still ridiculous. He's a baller. He can play. And we'll see how that dynamic how Holmgren and Timme make each other better, and if that can really push them to winning these kind of awards.
I got the 6'9" forward bucket getter in Imani Bates at Memphis right now, Freshman of the Year. I'll take him pretty easily. And for Player of the Year overall, I'm going to take Javon Quinterly from Alabama. Dude's a killer. Jelly Fam Q. He had 12 and 9 and 3 assists last year. So, he's more than what his statistics can speak from him. He's a playmaker. He's a great passer. He's a terrific three-point shooter, and he's in a great system at Alabama. And I really think that he can do what it takes. Last year they were a 2 seed in the tournament. This year I can guarantee you they're going to be a number 1, and he's going to walk with the bag out of there getting that National Player of the Year award.
Just a quick mention, another Alabama player, J.D. Davison. Incredibly fast, great transition player. He's a great rebounder for a guard. He plays the game athletically to his level. Every pass, every finish, every shot, he plays it with a lot of power and a lot of athleticism, and I think he's, another great player on Alabama.
All right, I'm going to go with the basic route and just pick Chet Holmgren for both, just because of how versatile he is as a 7-footer. He really is the second coming of the Slim Reaper, so except he's much slimmer. But yeah, that'll wrap it up for the college basketball segment. We might have a college basketball headline in the next segment, but until then, we're going to head to a break. So we'll see you after this break. This is One-on-One Nightly. welcome back into One-on-One Nightly, New York's longest-running sports call-in show. Once again, my name is Tom Quigley, and I'm joined here by Eli Keeler and Will Grant. And we're going to get into some headlines from around the sports world today. There are definitely some interesting ones, but we'll stick with college basketball for this first one. Freshman standout Paolo Banchero and fellow Duke teammate Michael Savarino, who happens to be the grandson of Coach K, were handed a DWI charge this weekend. Banchero was charged with aiding and abetting. He was sitting in the back seat of the car, which is registered to his name, while Savarino was the one behind the wheel. Despite this, Banchero played in last night's game, dropping 10 points with 8 boards in 26 minutes on the court. What do you make of this decision, or the situation, and the decision to play Banchero last night?
Well, Coach K said in a press conference that each player is in two really different situations. You know, one was driving, which makes a big difference. For Banchero, Coach K's obviously not stupid. He still needs to win games. Banchero is incredibly strong, incredible offensive player, true 3-level scorer, mid-range, 3-point, and he can drive and finish in the paint like nobody else. And one big thing I love about him, he's a big man who makes his free throws. So I think that's pretty huge. For the situation itself, this obviously can't help his draft stock.
Quite the opposite, I think.
It's not. It doesn't look good for him. There's a lot of season left, and if he really, focuses, keeps his head down, and just plays basketball, I think he can recover from this, and I don't think it'll be that bad.
Yeah, I think two different situations entirely in terms of where they were in the car. I know that Banchero was in the back, and obviously Krzyzewski's grandson Savarino was in the driving seat. So .08 is what he blew, and for any minor, that's a DWI. But for this guy, he was, he wasn't too messed up, but being underage is going to do that to you. Banchero, though, his future compared to Savarino are completely different. He's going to be a lottery pick. He's one of the best players in the nation, and who knows? I mean, who knows where that cop went to college, might have been a Tar Heel, but
oh my, jeez,
No.
Getting a little conspiratorial, but
no, this is nothing.
Of course. I think it's just a little bit of a lapse of judgment to start Banchero in this. I think you sit him one game. Obviously, he didn't drive under the influence. He wasn't the one driving.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm sure he was under the influence. And that's if you're in the back seat, you're not the one driving, so you're not the one at fault. But at the same time, it's definitely a lapse of judgment and a teachable moment that you'd think maybe Coach K would probably prioritize over just one game in the very early stretches of the season. I know it's his last season, but it's kind of a bit of a strange look. Obviously, completely different situations that Banchero and Savarino are in. For Savarino, I think most people expect that he'll be suspended at least indefinitely. I hope that there's no, leniency because it's his grandfather coaching the team, and I don't think there will be, especially because he's not, one of the star players, and it's ridiculous that I'm saying that, but that seems to have a little bit of a pull when it comes to situations like these. But we'll move on to our next headline, and this one is on the diamond. Former Mets starting pitcher Noah Syndergaard signed a 1-year, $21 million deal with the Los Angeles Angels. Syndergaard has spent his first 7 years in the majors in a Mets uniform and is coming off 2 years of almost no game time due to his recovery from Tommy John surgery. In signing with the Angels, he turned down the Mets' 1-year, $18.6 million qualifying offer. Do you think the Mets will regret not making a bigger offer?
I mean, it's really hard to say. I think they will. I think Syndergaard is going to play well, but it's yet to be seen. And this is an incredibly important year for Syndergaard. It's frankly a make or break year. He's off an injury. I think he pitched 2 innings last year. So you have a 1-year deal for a good amount of money. You're going to the Angels, who should be a successful team. If you don't pitch like you're supposed to, other teams are going to see that. And if he does pitch like he's supposed to after that 1-year deal, who knows who he'll sign with next? Maybe a multi-year deal for a ton of money. that's optimistic. I mean, not necessarily optimistic, but that's the ideal situation for him. But I think this Angels team too can look amazing if Syndergaard really plays to what he's able to play at.
Yeah, this is an important stat I think I should mention. He's thrown 203 innings in his career, and he has 219 strikeouts, which is
That's just ridiculous.
rather impressive. Obviously, he was out with the last 2 years with Tommy John. I was actually at the Mets game, his first game that he came back from in September, I believe. Maybe that was, I think I was right before October. And it was kind of electrifying. I mean, the entire crowd, the Mets fans love Syndergaard. I mean, they nicknamed him Thor, which you have to because of the way he looks. But they were huge on that pitching staff. And you go back to like 2015, this pitching staff with Syndergaard, Matt Harvey, obviously Jacob deGrom, who's the only one still left on the team. You got Bartolo's gone. All these guys, Steven Matz is gone. All these guys have left, and the only one left is deGrom, and he's probably the best out of all of them. But it really is kind of a turning. This is like the last turn of the page from that 2015 run to the World Series that they eventually lost to the Royals. I think they might regret it, just because we have no idea what's going to go on with these CBA negotiations, which are coming up. So everything's up in the air. I think signing players now is like what people are, or what these organizations are kind of looking to do before everything goes, up in the air, and we don't know if we'll even have a season, which I hope it doesn't get to that point. But I think they might regret not getting this signing done. I know that they have a lot of good pitching in Stroman and even and now I'm completely blanking on his name. Taijuan Walker, there you go. And of course deGrom when he comes back. So it was almost an embarrassment of riches if Syndergaard was to come back, but that is something that got them to the World Series in 2015. This is a completely different team, but pitching is going to get you to that promised land, and we'll see how this ages.
Right.
We'll see how he comes back from the surgery, but that's just a huge loss. I think from a skill standpoint and from just like a morale standpoint for your fans who really, I mean, it was an interesting year to be a Mets fan and to be a Mets player in those interactions. So the Steve Cohen era is off to an interesting start, and we'll see what happens after this. Let's move on to another baseball headline, and this one is just one of those interesting ones. Yesterday, Astros shortstop and current free agent Carlos Correa was a guest on the Me Gustan Los Deportes podcast. That translates to I like sports. Very clever. And said, Derek Jeter, how many... Okay, let me restart this. He said this, quote, Derek Jeter, how many gold gloves did he win? 5. I think he won 5 gold gloves.
Sorry.
Derek Jeter didn't deserve any. Close quote. I did a really bad job of reading that quote, but you know what he said. He said that Jeter didn't deserve the 5 gold gloves that he won. This is also coming after Carlos Correa won his first this year. Very interesting comments made by someone who is rumored to be a Yankees target in free agency. So I got to get your guys' thoughts on that.
I mean, as a Yankee fan, this is probably the most entertaining thing that could have happened. I think Correa probably won his first gold glove and, thought maybe he could be like Jeter one day. Jeter's my golden boy. And I'm a Yankee fan, if you guys didn't know.
Oh, it sounds like it.
But I think he's being ridiculous. Another thing is, just speaking for free agency, I think the Yankees and Correa from both sides need to stay as far away from each other as possible. If I'm the Yankees, he's a fantastic shortstop, obviously. But none of the fans like him. Derek Jeter probably doesn't like him anymore.
I'm sure.
The players probably aren't too happy with him, and Correa certainly doesn't want to be a Yankee. If he's going on air and talking about this, if I'm the Yankees, I'd chase anyone at shortstop except for Correa. Not anyone, but
There's definitely some big names.
Yeah,
out
there's
there.
Who is it?
Trevor Story,
Simeon, I think.
Simeon.
I mean, but if I'm the Yankees GM, I stay away from Correa.
Do you have any thoughts on this? Or, I mean, are you a Yankees fan?
I am a Yankees fan. I mean, I think that honestly, at the end of the day, if Correa comes, I mean, we're just gonna be like, cool. Like,
You think the Yankees would just forgive him for that? I mean, like, they
yeah,
probably
yeah,
would.
I think
They definitely
will.
would.
I mean, if they actually,
I'm pretty sure they will.
I mean, A-Rod and Jeter used to have beef before A-Rod joined the Yankees,
and then
they
yeah,
still had
A-Rod,
beef.
yeah,
but
but
course.
he was on the team, so the
but now
fans
Yankees
liked him.
fans are pretty lukewarm about A-Rod.
Oh yeah, of course.
So, and that's more of A-Rod's fault. But personally, I think it's just so ridiculous for him to say this.
Yeah.
One, he just turned down the offer from the Astros, which is out. They lowballed him, and like I'll admit that. But at the same time, it sounds like he doesn't necessarily want to return to the Astros. And the Yankees are one of the more competitive teams on paper. Let me make sure. On paper, because they suck this year.
Yep.
It's just really weird career move for him. And obviously Carlos Correa has been the most outspoken and illogical about the Astros cheating scandal in 2017. He kind of just like said, "So what?" And everybody else was like, "Yes, well, you cheated, like, so that's not fair, and you shouldn't have won the World Series." He doesn't seem to understand that, especially because he's saying that Derek Jeter, who is one of the most respected players in MLB history, didn't deserve the awards he won, whereas Carlos Correa, by factual evidence, did not deserve the one piece of hardware, or at least the first piece of hardware that he ever earned in that World Series trophy. So I just think it's so hypocritical. Right. It's the peak of hypocrisy for him to go out on a limb, and like I don't even think he was like, they might have been talking about like his Gold Glove, or like maybe we were talking about Jeter, but it seems like he kind of like went out on a limb to go at Derek Jeter. Like, it's a very strange move. I think it would be really funny now if the Yankees signed him, because the Yankees fans would just feel like, I don't know. I'm a Red Sox fan. It would make the Yankees even more easy to hate on, although they do a good enough job of that already. So we'll see what happens. But I definitely think that it's less likely to happen now. And I don't think Yankees fans would be too overjoyed, especially now. But I think we should move on to this last headline we have, and this is, again, one of the more interesting ones, not as impactful, I suppose, in the game itself, but early this morning, and I mean early, like 12:30, I'm being like weirdly like technical about this thing. It was announced that the Staples Center, home of the Los Angeles Lakers and Clippers of the NBA, the Los Angeles Kings of the NHL, and the Los Angeles Sparks of the WNBA, each for the past 20 years, will undergo a name change starting on December 25th, 2021. That's Christmas Day. Those four teams will call Crypto.com Arena their home. That's Crypto.com Arena. The deal that made this happen is the largest, it's being reported, the largest naming rights deal in the history of sports, with Crypto.com set to pay $700 million over the next 20 years. The famed arena has already hosted 7 NBA Finals, 2 Stanley Cup Finals, 5 WNBA Finals, and 4 combined All-Star games in just 22 years of existence. I mean, it's the Staples Center. It's kind of one of the crown jewels of LA. The Lakers have called it home for 5 championships. The Clippers have also existed in that building doing nothing. And the Kings have won even 2 Stanley Cups in that building. So it's just the Staples Center, like, it's just always been the Staples Center. And like, maybe you associate that with their actual brand sponsor, Staples, the office store. But it just has been like, it just rolls off the tongue so easily. And now you got Crypto.com Arena will be the new name. I got to get your guys' take on this.
Well, Staples Center is an iconic name, so there's definitely some, there's some emotions when you change the name of an arena like that. But I think that this is a very good, very good name change. Like, if you were to change your name at all, it doesn't really ring off the tongue. But financially speaking, like, the crypto game is not going to slow down. It's just going to get bigger and bigger. So I think to partner with someone like that couldn't hurt. I don't think it could hurt. Another thing, Crypto.com actually had another naming rights deal with the Sixers. They have a patch on their jersey.
Yeah.
So, and the crypto game in general, like, FTX is another company.
Right.
They signed an endorsement deal with
Shohei, right?
Shohei,
Yeah.
right? And they have investors like Tom Brady and Steph Curry.
David Ortiz.
Right. So I mean, this is just I think the Staples Center, or formerly known as Staples Center, kind of hopped on a good trend to be on, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been in a Staples since I was in second grade.
That's
So it seems pretty like, keeping up with time. And crypto, obviously, as we know, has emerged in the last few years as something that everybody likes to talk about, whether you own it or not. It's going to make people money. Some athletes request to be paid in it. Some government officials request to be paid in it. So, I mean, it's making its way into the mainstream, but, I don't know. This isn't a political podcast, so I don't really care. But, yeah, Staples Center is a great place, but every good place has to have an ending. And I think Christmas of this year, we'll kiss it goodbye and probably forget about Staples, honestly, for the rest of existence.
Yeah, I mean, I interacted with cryptos, more recently than I've even interacted with a staple,
or a piece of paper.
Office supplies not exactly as technologically modern as cryptocurrency. Well, here's my old man rant. I hate crypto. Crypto is so annoying. It's so dumb. It's just like fake money. There's no value, like inherent value to it, unlike actual currencies. And it's so terrible for the environment to mine.
That's where
crypto
I agree with you.
is. I want to stop talking about crypto, and now I have to mention it every time I talk about any Lakers, Clippers. Well, I guess the Clippers are about to move, but any Lakers, Kings,
Are they?
LA Sparks game. Yeah, they're moving to a new arena that they're building near the Forum. But back to my point.
Sorry.
I hate crypto. I hate crypto.com. I hate that everything is just all about cryptocurrency because it's so stupid. Everything's like all the cryptocurrencies are just named after like ridiculous like things that we can't even say on the radio, and like they have like 0.00001 like percent like of a value of like a dollar, and then like one celebrity will just like bump it up by saying, oh, you gotta buy this, you gotta buy this, you gotta buy this. It goes up, they sell it, they make a ton of money, and then a bunch of people lose money off of it. Crypto's a terrible thing. I hate it, and that's my take on it. And crypto.com arena does not roll off the tongue at all. The Staples Center is iconic. I hate the Lakers because I'm a Celtics fan, but the Staples Center is it's the premier arena other than, Madison Square Garden. And, like, that's saying a lot because there's a lot of, I guess the Boston Garden doesn't really exist anymore, but there's some pretty nice arenas and stadiums in sports. And, Staples Center is up there with, some of the top ones. And the fact that we're going to change the name to something dumb like crypto.com arena is... I hate that.
It's so funny. It's like .com too.
It's so dumb.
Okay.
It's a website. It's named after a website.
Yeah.
But regardless, that's just about gonna do it for tonight's episode. As always, I want to thank our sports director Bobby Chaffardini, our radio producer Alex Woles, our video producer Annabelle Watson. Thanks to Gokul Perugu and Michael Hernandez on graphics. A special thanks to our Knicks reporter Michael Calamari and our Nets reporter Jack Roach, and of course, thanks to my co-hosts Will Grant and Eli Keeler.
Thanks for having me.
I'm Tom Quigley. This has been One on One Nightly. Make sure to check out our YouTube channel for clips from tonight's episode as well as others, and tune in for our Saturday edition of One on One at 11 p.m. every weekend on 90.7 FM, YouTube, and Facebook Watch. One on One is a production of WFUV Sports.